Welcome to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Hi, everyone. I'm Tammi Mack. So Zapp's hit song Computer Love was way ahead of its time. Technology has always played a pivotal role in the evolution of the world. It has shaped the way we communicate and work and how we learn. We have immediate access to information at our fingertips, designed to make our lives easier. But perhaps there is a downside to this. Have we become smarter because of technology, or have we become so dependent on it that we have lost our ability to do the simplest things for ourselves, like remember our grandmother's phone number? Yeah. Let's get down to business. The business of being Black today is technology dumbing us down. Please welcome the co-host of the Gentlemen of Crypto podcast, King Bless is here with us. Hey, King Bless.
Hey, Tammi, thanks for having me.
Radio personality and the host of Miles to Mogul, Miles Blockson, is in the box. Hi, Miles.
Hi, Tammi.
Author and research professor of philosophy and psychology, Anthony Shamero. Hi, Tony.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And consultant and life coach, Dr. Jeff Minzy. Hi, Dr. Jeff.
Hey, what's up, Tammi?
So first, I want to ask, why should Black people care about technology and whether it's dumbing us down or not? Why should Black people care about this? I mean, after all, how many of us are, over there in the world making technology? Let's talk about it, King.
I think we should care because, you started off the show saying, hey, isn't making it life too easy for us or dumbing us down? Like, it is making life easier, especially being Black in America. We need every little thing we can use to make things easier for us to catch up in some areas we've been behind on. So technology is definitely one of those vehicles to help us catch up. So I'm all for it.
Miles.
Yes, it is definitely making us dumber. We spend more time on social media than we do reading books, and that's a problem.
Well, I want to circle back to that because it's interesting you say that, and I think that's somewhere we can dive into. Dr. Jeff, how, why should Black people care about technology dumbing us down or not?
I think we should care because we already demonstrate a deficit in the academic setting, for example. And I'm noticing, students, a lot of my students aren't able to write anymore like we used to write. Everything's in shorthand, everything's in the text lexicon, and I could tell like when they're turning in an email to me and they've typed it on their smart device as opposed to a computer. And so I think we got to be very cautious on this intentional, what I think is an intentional dumbing down.
Yeah, you can tell the difference, can't you? Tony, talk about it. Why should Black people in America care?
Well, I think everyone should care. And what's really going on, I think, is that what technology is doing is changing the way that we think, but it's not making us dumber. It's changing how we do things. But I think we can do more than we could in the past.
So I want to circle back to Miles. When you say, people don't pick up a book and read anymore, we're always on our smartphones, on our social media platforms. But Miles, books are now on our devices. Books are on our iPads. They're on our phones. So what's the difference?
The difference is distractions. If you're on your device and you're reading a book, how many times do you get pinged on Instagram or Facebook, or you get a text message or a phone call? That distracts you from actually finishing it up. You know what I mean? So to me, it's all about how you use your time. 3.5 hours are utilized with most people a day on social media and on the internet. That comes out to be about 53 days a year of wasted time on your device. 53 days of you doing something that you could have done that could help you in the process, like just make you a better person.
I don't know. I might have to disagree with this one because look, I thought it was much more than 53 days and 3.5 hours. So if that's all, I'm like, maybe I'll change my mind about social media. 53 days is nothing. We've got 365 in a year. Come on.
Tammi, that's a month and a half of no productivity. Like that's
But what if
important.
my productivity is on social media? What if I'm
Can I jump in
Googling
with
research? Go ahead, King.
Yeah,
Please help me, King.
Clearly the lines have been drawn. So let's go ahead and get it started. Like, I'm glad she brought up the social media point. Like, I live on YouTube, but I also get paid off YouTube. It's like so many people are working on social media platforms. Like, this is good news. People are becoming millionaires off Instagram, millionaires off TikTok, millionaires off YouTube, and so on and so forth. So I'm all for people spend time on social media. And of course, the gentleman in the crypto, the metaverse is coming. We are going to be fully digital. We are 3 years into what is this? We got a virus going on or whatever. Like things are going to go indoors. Things are going to go digital. We will be online more using technology. Zoom has already showed us that. That is the future. So it's not about if or when, it's about how to use this to your advantage. And again, for people specifically talking about Black people, like myself, my business partner, we've seen others in our space. They are becoming wealthy. They're being able to take care of their families using the internet, using social media and all these other mechanisms.
Now, I'll give you that. A lot of Black people have come up off of social media and are making millions, millions of dollars a year. Forget those 53 days, Miles. They're making millions of dollars out of the 364 days a year, 65 days a year. But those platforms can be easily stripped away from them, suspended for X amount of times, taken off indefinitely, like our former president, Trump. And also, my concern is that, yeah, we use it and we make money from it, but how do we become a part of Silicon Valley, Tony?
Right. Well, that's a good question.
Part of making and creating it and having everlasting, indefinite money from technology. That's
a good question. I mean, one of the things that I do is I work at a big public university and I try very hard to reach the minority and first generation college students and let them know that they shouldn't be afraid of computers and that anything that they can learn about computer programming will be really valuable to them going forward.
There's a...
Go ahead, Dr. Menzie.
Yeah, there's a relatively small number of people who are actually coming up on these social media platforms. So we can't act like, this is just this pot of gold that everybody can run to and take their share. It's a very small percentage of people that's actually coming up. The majority of people are consumers. And we know consumers end up spending their resources in these environments. And, much to what Miles is saying, the resource that we're spending is our attention, our time, our productive hours. We're spending these minutes and these hours, these days, these months, and these years of our lives staring half dead into a screen, zoning out, getting somebody else's content poured into our head. And then when your battery dies or you didn't pay your bill that month, then you're left to what? Nothing most of the time. And so we're not spending our time appropriately. We're not building, we're not utilizing our resources, and not to mention the psychological and cognitive tax of all this stuff. I mean, it's a whole nother ball game, and we're getting the short end of the stick.
We'll definitely get into the psychology of it all. But I do want to say, when you say not a lot of people are making money from it, maybe a lot of people aren't making money from social media directly, but certainly people are making money by using it in terms of their businesses. Like even going through this pandemic, how many people have we seen quit their jobs or lose their jobs and then turn into their own independent businesses and create platforms that have heightened their business model and allowed them to make a massive amount of money that they wouldn't have without social media platforms?
Yeah, it's a dope marketing tool. I mean, if you know how to use it, you can use it to come up. But again, it's a relatively small number of people that are able to actually leverage it in that way. And here's the other thing, and I'll shut up. We haven't spent a lot of time measuring how successful people are actually going to be in that. People have quit their jobs and they may be regretting it in 6 months. We have no idea what's coming as far as that's concerned. I think people got anxious and jumped ship prematurely.
How do you jump ship prematurely when you're in the middle of a pandemic and you done lost your job? What the hell, Dr. Menzie?
But then the people that lost the job, yeah, of course. But some people chose to quit. Some people said, I ain't going back to work. Nope. People are not applying for jobs right now. There is an employee shortage right now because people think that they're gonna use this gig economy, delivering folks groceries in their takeout, and they're gonna be able to sustain their livelihood off of that. I think there's a rude awakening coming down the pike, good sister.
Tony, I feel you wanting to chime in here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak in favor of social media at all. If you just think about all the misinformation about the virus and about the election and this kind of attack on the US Capitol, all comes from people saying whatever they want on social media. So, I mean, I guess I'm only in favor of like what we can do with technology. I think social media was one of the hugest mistakes we've ever made.
I got to push back on all this. Like, first and foremost, there's a small number of outliers in every industry, especially when we're talking about successful outliers, people who have made a certain amount of capital, who have done well in business, is very small no matter what industry you choose across the board. So to isolate social media, I think is unfair. As far as
isolating it though, it's just stating the fact about it. It's the same as everything else, as you're pointing out. That doesn't mean it is better. It's the same. You're right.
Well, if I can do it from home in my underwear, automatically makes it better to me. But
true. TMI, Sam.
King, are you in your underwear now?
Don't ask that question. Don't prove it.
No, and the second thing is when we talk about social media, how people are using it. I know we said we're getting into psychology later, but even just on the forefront as far as marketing or whatever, again, those outliers, like you can't judge the mechanism on the platform because of the way people use it. If you give everybody in this country right now $10 million, with the old saying, like the people who are wealthy are probably going to still end up being wealthy, and the people who are poor and consumers and everything else, they're going to still end up being poor and consumers as years go by. Like the dynamic will not really shift just by giving people money without education. So again, whatever people choose to do on social media, that is to their own advice. If they want to be a consumer, or they just want to use it for entertainment, or if they want to use it for work. It's the same thing as a car or whatever else. It's like, all right, maybe you're using it to be a racer and you're making money racing cars. Maybe you use it just to go to work. Maybe you use it to show off. Everyone has a different reason for why they use it, but it doesn't change the platform being beneficial to a community, I think.
As a matter of fact, there was a time when people laughed at the thought that every household would have a computer in it. So when we return, we're going to talk about that, because how do you go from, yeah, right, every household is going to have a computer in it, to now every household has at least 3 computers in it. And if we include phones, we don't know how, we don't even know where the count starts, begins, and ends. So we'll talk about that and how technology has revolutionized the world when we return on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Tammi Mack. Let's get down to business. I'm talking square biz to you, baby. The business of being Black today is technology. Is it dumbing us down? Please welcome the co-host of the Gentlemen of Crypto podcast, King Bless, radio personality and the host of Miles to Mogul, Miles Blockson, author and research professor of philosophy and psychology, Anthony Shamero, and consultant and life coach, Dr. Jeff Menzie. Listen, whether we agree or not on whether technology is dumbing us down, we can definitely agree that it has revolutionized the world. How has technology revolutionized the world, Tony?
Well, I think we can just do a lot more than we were able to do before, partly because we don't waste our mental energy memorizing phone numbers, and we don't spend our time lost when we're trying to get to the grocery store. And we also can just do more complicated computations and calculations now that just make us able to accomplish more complex tasks.
That does sound like it's dumbing us down. I don't think you gave us a good reason for it not dumbing us down. I'm like, we can't remember phone numbers. We don't know how to get to where we got to go. And we need to use our computer to calculate things. Miles.
I mean, he made the argument for me. Like, I have at least 5 numbers memorized that I need to know in case my phone goes out or in case I have to use somebody else's phone. So I feel like it has dramatically dumbed us down. Like, the only upsides to me of technology is the fact that we do get to see our loved ones. That's it. For the most part, we get to keep up with people in our lives. That's it.
Now, come on now, Miles, you killing me today. Miles, you have to at least agree that technology and the GPS has mastered a certain area in our lives.
I'll give you a little bit for GPS. But how many times have you been driving and it took you the long way home? Let's be honest here.
Dr. Menzie.
Yeah, my man Tony, I'm a research professor just like you, brother. And, that whole thing, a waste of time memorizing numbers. Come on, psychology researcher. Memory is a muscle just like anything else. And if you're not utilizing it, then you eventually lose the capacity for it. And we're talking about an aging population, we're talking about people who are we're beginning to live longer as human beings, so to not flex your memory muscle is actually setting yourself up for failure in the future. The GPS piece, I know people who have the GPS to get home from the grocery store. That's the waste. I think about it like this. When you GPS your way to a location, you don't pay attention to landmarks. You don't pay attention to the route that you took. And so you almost always need the GPS to get back out of there. And so back in the day, what was it? We used to actually get real maps, call somebody, hey, how I get to your house? And they say, when you see the old man with only 3 teeth on the corner, make a left right there.
Right.
So we have to flex our muscles. And right now, man, they're taking that from us. And with every technological revolution, there are people that push back, because they cite, all the changes. People do resist change. Some people get on board, they get ahead of the curve, and they take full advantage and they prosper. But then that's that group in the middle that just kind of goes along to get along, and they're no better for it in the end.
Do any of you remember the Thomas Guide? Anyone remember the thing called Thomas Guide?
I do.
You remember it? Yeah, the Thomas Guide. I'm so happy I got to throw that thing in the trash can. I swear to God. I do not want to ever in my life see a Thomas Guide. But Dr. Menzie, that's me. I'm people who have to GPS to the grocery store. Okay. I admit it. I gotta admit it. Professor Shomero, you have said that there isn't any evidence actually that technology has made us less intelligent. Talk about that.
Right. So, people have had this worry ever since Plato. He worried that learning to read and write would, he said, implant forgetfulness in our souls. Right. So people worried about this thing from the very beginning of the written word. And I think that when you look at the headlines in the newspapers that talk about psychological experiments, they don't actually show that people are less intelligent or have worse memories. They typically show things more like, if I tell you that you don't have to memorize something because you can look it up later, you're less likely to remember it. That's the kind of content of the psychological experiments.
But Professor Shomero, Dr. Menzie makes a very good point when he says the memory is a muscle. And if you don't use it, you will lose it. So is that true? Like, how do you feel about that?
Sure. Memory is important, but again, you don't have to spend your time memorizing things that you could just look up later. It's good to remember things, but you can use that psychological energy in a more effective way sometimes. What we should do is we should allow the machines to do things for us that we're bad at, like memorization, like complicated computation, things like that. And then we should spend our mental energy doing other things.
Tammi, you said we could just jump in. Look at this now. I'm actually very surprised that my fellow scholar and researcher and professor here is talking like this about psychological characteristics. Tammi, when I do an IQ test, for example, when I'm literally testing somebody's intelligence, there are several types of subtests that I administer. One is a memory test. So the degree to which they can recall information determines, in part, their intellect. Their ability to reason, to psychologically reason on things, their ability to pay attention and freedom from distractibility. These are characteristics of both IQ as well as psychological disorders. And so what our dear professor here is talking about is literally the manifestation of psychological disorders and disabilities. And it's just like, I'm appalled by this. I can't believe it, brother.
Well, I apologize, but I think that for one, IQ doesn't really measure anything. And the IQ tests themselves have a long history of racist bias.
Yeah, you're true about that.
But here's the
professor's speaking now. He said they have racist bias. And you got to agree with that, Dr. Menzie.
Well, see, but that's why he played that card. So now he's trying to trump me by being the one that brings up racism.
No. He's not playing cards and trumping you. He's speaking facts. Go ahead, Professor Shomero.
So I guess what I'm suggesting is that we have to understand humans as always using technology to do what we do. And we have to adjust how we do things to the current technology. Being smart isn't a matter of raw brain power. It's a matter of being able to accomplish things. So I think that's what I'm talking about, Dr. Menzie. I don't mean to disagree with the practice that you do, but I do think that we have to understand being smart differently now.
King, I think you want to.
Listen, I got to piggyback on a few things. First of all, just to go to the IQ test. Like when it comes to IQ tests and all, like, why are we always trying to make things harder? Right? Go to school, do that. Like the point is to live a high quality of life. For some people, that's families, whatever. Live a good life. You get old and you die. All these other jobs and IQ tests, those are human mechanisms we're putting on people, especially when you're talking about the Black community and the mechanisms that have been put on us here in America. We shouldn't be rushing to put mechanisms on each other. It's like, what makes the smartest person in the room any better than the dumbest person in the room if they're not utilizing it in a certain way? So I do have to push back against that. And then in general, when it comes to technology, humans are adaptable. We want to be more efficient. Like, why? Like this whole thing of, well, I like to keep it basic. Let's use a calculator. Why use a calculator? Let's do long form of arithmetic. Like, no, why? Like, I know how to do it, but even if I didn't know how to do it, so what? I've never had to do it. I've always had a calculator. And the day comes when I don't have a calculator, I am sure there will be someone near me who is that mathematician master, right? So I think technology is good. Humans are adaptable. We become more efficient. And to even use technology, you have to be smart. People don't even know how to log on to Facebook still. Like, you have to be smart to use technology. So I really push back against all that. And last but not least, I know we were talking about like, social media, communications, and the good Dr. Menzies even mentioned a revolution. You're right. That's why revolutions are happening now. We can communicate faster than ever. You can get on social media. We saw it a few years ago in Iraq. We saw throughout Egypt when all these protests were happening. People were getting on social media. They were getting on Twitter. Hey, meet me at the square. We don't like how the government running things. We're about to have a revolution. We saw that. And then last but not least, for those who are against technology, fine, be against technology. And when I'm with technology, we're building missiles and military machinery and all this stuff that uses tech, you're going to say, hey, we'll use sticks and stones and face off against you. I don't know if that's going to be a good idea.
Yeah, I'm with you on that revolution thing. We have started. I mean, the reason why George Floyd's death was created so much change was because of one thing: technology. I mean, the world knew that George Floyd had died at the hands of police, that he was murdered at the hands of police because of social media. It started a global revolution. But I got that from what you said, King, but I also got that it's okay for me to eat my key lime pie, watch Golden Girls every day, and just die. I got that too. We'll be right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Today, the business of being Black is technology. Is it making us dumber? Is it dumbing us down? Miles, you say, yes, it is. But I do want to jump back to what King said. He said it also starts revolutions. And then I mentioned George Floyd. And I want to say this as candidly as I can. Our president, Joe Biden, made a comparison to George Floyd's murder at the hands of police versus Martin Luther King's assassination. And he said that more people, I guess, knew about George Floyd's murder than, and it sparked more of a protest than even Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. And I would have to say that is simply because of technology today, because of Twitter, because of Facebook, because of Instagram, because of all of these platforms that we had. And you have to agree that while Dr. Martin Luther King's murder was around the world, it did not spark the global revolution that George Floyd's murder did. And many disagree with that, but we saw China, we saw Africa, we saw every nation come to in defense of this horrific act that happened at the hands of the police in America. Miles?
That is so true. I mean, information travels very quickly now in this day and age. And getting information like that from George Floyd, you're right. Everybody around the world knew what happened here. When, Dr. Martin Luther King passed, it was really like, if you think about it, it was the United States first, and then word got out to everyone else about what happened to him. But on the flip side of that, Tammi, what happens when we hear about somebody dying that really didn't die? We hear that all the time, and then it turns out that the person is still alive, and then that information has already traveled, and the person has to tweet and say, no, I'm still alive. Look at me, I'm still here. So it's a two-sided, it's a double-edged sword when you think about stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true, because Professor Shamiro did talk about how the misinformation of technology is also hurting us as well. What is digital amnesia, and how has that altered the way our brains work? Professor Shamiro.
So this is the first time I've heard the phrase digital amnesia. So I would leave it.
Well, let me defer to Dr. Menzies.
So yeah, I've never heard the phrase myself either, but if I had to take a stab at it, it would be having a dependency on digital platforms such as calculators, such as context lists, and you no longer remember the things that you may have once remembered or put energy towards memorizing.
Yeah, actually, it is the experience of forgetting information that you trust a digital device to store and remember for you. So it's much like those phone numbers that we were talking about. I want to go into how it affects teenagers and children. I don't even think that they teach cursive writing in school anymore. I'm not exactly sure why we even need algebra and I don't know, even math anymore. Look, I say that because I was horrible at math, but I never thought we needed it. I'm not exactly sure why we need that, because we keep talking about calculators and it's right at the tip of our fingertips. So what impact has technology had on teenagers and children, Dr. Menzie?
Part of it is it's a method of thinking. You're being trained of how to think about certain things in various ways. And that's why you take classes like algebra. That's why people play chess. That's why people memorize numbers. It's a method of thinking. Even King Bless, when you're dealing with the cryptocurrency, understanding that whole world it requires a certain type of thinking. It requires a certain thought process. And so that's what we're being trained in, is how to think about things. Some call it metacognition, thinking about thinking. And when you only limit a person's thinking to one track, then you cut them off from being able to solve problems in a variety of ways. And I think that's where we start to run into issues, when we are so used to just being able to scroll alphabetically, find a person's number, push a button and call them, as opposed to being able to recall 10 digits, 3 for the area code, 7 for the phone number. What we've done is we've cut off a method of thinking. We've cut off a cognitive skill that does prove beneficial in various ways in life, whether it's called algebra or not. You can think about things algebraically.
You don't even have to know how to spell anything anymore. I remember my aunt was what do they call them? A typesetter? I can't even remember what they used to call them. Like whatever it is that court reporters do.
Oh, stenographer.
It's shorthand. It's shorthand, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't even have to spell anymore, because everything is written shorthand.
Right.
Everything is shorthand.
There's autocorrect. There's
autocorrect too. I get so mad at that autocorrect. I'm like, no, I'm trying to spell it wrong. I'm trying to spell it wrong, Miles. I'm trying to spell it wrong.
Not only that, Tammy, but when you think about the kids, they don't even have social skills anymore. Like a lot of times they don't even look you in your eyes when you're talking to them. They're too busy scrolling on their phone, trying to figure something out. They're like, okay, hi, back to this. So I feel like it's taking away from their actual social skills and being able to like make new friends and really be a part of reality versus the virtual world.
So King Bless, both Dr. Menzie and Miles say that it hinders a child's cognitive skills as well as their social skills. And listen, King Bless, you're in the crypto and your technology, like you're on level 10, if the game goes to 10. Without the education and the knowledge that you have that exists without technology, would you be able to perform in the capacity that you do?
Would I be able to perform without the technology? No, I wouldn't, because I do use the technology for things. And
I'm saying, would you be able to perform as you do today without those skills that you acquired that did not require technology?
Oh, yes. Like, what could I have done, like years without the algebra, the years without the cursive, years? Yes, I definitely could perform today without using some of those metrics and years or whatever. But, to reply back to Miles and the good Dr. Menzie, I actually agree with both of them. I do think it is limiting what we know as far as early childhood development and teenagers in their development. From what we know, it is limiting as far as how we used to do things. It was 7 numbers, then we went to 10 numbers, once we had area codes for everybody. So I get it and I agree. But my pushback is we're turning into different humans. I don't think we're accepting that. Humans are adaptable. We will not be the same 50 to 100 years from now that we are now, nor will we be 100 years prior. And I say that because we have to start looking at things different. We will not, again, we will be in a digital landscape. This is going to happen. All right. I know people don't want it. It looks crazy, but it's happening right in front of us already. So
is reparations, by the way.
So for me, when it's like, when you start looking at the development of children, and I agree with Mal too, like when it's comes to younger people having face-to-face interactions, they're terrible, right? They can only do it online or through social media. They can't talk to you in a physical human form face-to-face. It's very difficult for some people. However, that might be the new human we're turning into. That might be the new human. So
King Bless, that's my concern right there, because in the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Disorders, that is a characteristic trait of a psychological disorder. not being able to look a person in their eyes when communicating socially. And I agree with you, though, brother, that we are becoming new human beings. My
But Dr.
concern is,
Menzie, a lot of definitions have changed through the course of
I was about to
history.
throw it out
Would
there.
that change?
I'm in LA.
you
It's a
can
lot of
change.
definitions.
You can change a definition all day. It doesn't change the reality. You see, so I can say that this word doesn't mean this anymore. In fact, you look at some words; they got 15 different definitions for one word. It just depends on which one you're using in this conversation. But again, when you look at certain things like not being able to look a person in their eyes because socializing in person is awkward for you, there's no way you can slice it that makes that not a dysfunction. And so all I'm saying is that, yes, I agree with becoming new human beings. Who's creating that new human being and towards what end? Because somebody is intentionally reforming what human beings are. This is not an accidental process. And so you get games like Minecraft that gets a child used to point of view play, socializing via the video game, and that's setting the terrain for the metaverse. So it's all a step-by-step process, but it's intentionally being done. And all I'm saying is who's doing it and what's the end game?
So
I heard in there, hold on, King. I heard in there that the metaverse is a bad thing, Dr. Menzie.
No, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think it's a thing that is happening. It's going to happen. They're selling real estate. They've got attorneys for the metaverse. I mean, this thing, it's going to happen. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing. And it will cost us. It's going to cost us.
What will it cost us, Miles?
It's going to cost us our face-to-face interactions. That's what it's going to cost. It's going to cost just being able to walk in and have fun with your friends versus like being in a virtual world, like a made-up world with your friends when you could just go to a coffee shop with them. That's what it's going to cost us. And if we're just going for the money and it's okay to be dumb, I get it. If that's our argument here, like everybody's getting rich so we can be dumber, it's cool, then I guess that's okay. But that's not okay with me. I don't want to live in that world.
Let's take a quick break and get out of this world and go into the commercial world on the Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. When my aunt used to play dominoes, she used to hit that 10 and be like, 10 to your business. Well, the business today of being Black is technology. Is it dumbing us down? Please welcome the co-host of the Gentleman of Crypto podcast, King Bless, radio personality and the host of Miles to Mogul, Miles Blockson, author and research professor of philosophy and psychology, Anthony Shimero, and consultant and life coach, Dr. Jeff Menzie. Now, before we left, Miles was saying that, listen, this not being able to have a face-to-face conversation and to not basically be human is what you're suggesting, Miles.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like King Bless, this is what you're saying. You're like, okay, my friends are profiting from this, so it's cool. We don't need this face-to-face interaction. We just need to adapt to this new, fake universe, this fake planet. Like, I'm not okay with that.
Well, a couple of things. First, I want to point out dysfunction, as Dr. Menzie pointed out, and I agree with them too. Tons of, dysfunctional people or being labeled different things. But again, being in Los Angeles, we've seen a lot of labels disappear and new ones pop up. So I will say that, but also dysfunction doesn't mean dumb. Like you can be dysfunctional and be a functioning human being. You can be smart, right? Like, for example, I just like to look at this panel right here. If you gave us all the same piece of technology, are we going to get dumber or are we going to get smarter and become more efficient to use it? I think this panel will become more efficient to use it. I don't think we'll be dumber.
That's a great example. I love that example, King.
And then,
Miles, what do you say? I mean, is he speaking truth?
Oh, King. Bless your heart.
Here's another example. There's a such thing as a functioning alcoholic. There's also another thing as a functioning person that's addicted to crack cocaine.
Now, hold on.
I mean, if we're just talking about...
Now, we're not going to suggest that it's okay to do crack or be an alcoholic simply because you can function at it.
But if we're talking about functionality being the marker, then because that's what King Bless was just saying, you can function through this stuff, and you absolutely can. People function through all kinds of things. People function with PTSD on a regular basis. But what happens is that you leave yourself susceptible. You're more likely to, mess up your own life or somebody else's when you're functioning in dysfunction. And so, I mean, we can't dismiss these things. I mean, it's been demonstrated over and over again in the psychological literature. I mean, there are actually studies that do show that there is a decrease in cognitive capacity in people who are overly reliant on technology. And so, we can spin it how we want to, but like I said, it's going to cost us something. And it is costing us.
Tony, they keep saying it's going to cost us something. But let's take this example of not being face-to-face in the whole metaverse today, right, Tony? Listen, we were in a pandemic, still are. for the last 2 years where we couldn't see anyone, we couldn't speak to anyone. We had to learn new ways to exist with one another. There are studies now that suggest that higher education is not even, it's not beneficial. I mean, come on, do we really need the things that are of old? And would a metaverse be a better world, Tony?
I am here to defend a very narrow thing, which is that these technologies might be really terrible, and some of them are, but the one thing they're not doing is making us dumb. I mean, they cause social media causes all kinds of problems. It's also beneficial in some ways, which is why people put up with the problems. So, I mean, I'm not in favor of the kind of loss. I mean, just think about being in person with someone versus having a Zoom chat. You lose so much of the experience of being with the person when you do that. So, I'm not a big fan of the online life or the metaverse.
King?
I think the metaverse is going to be good for us. I prefer face-to-face interaction. I'm millennial, so I've been a part of that world. Like I remember 7 phone numbers and a rotary phone versus where we're at now. So I've been in both worlds. I get it. But I think it's going to be good for us as far as efficiency again. I think when we start to look at humans becoming dumber and all those stuff, long story short is just, what's the end goal? Is the end goal to create a perfect human who have no dysfunctions, who are always perfect, and they do things in the real world? Like, that's not realistic. Again, humans are different. We're adaptable. There are going to be some crazy people, some cool people, some everything. But again, technology is not making us dumber. I think it's just enhancing who you already are.
Y'all remember that? You remember that cartoon Wall-E, when all the people were like, eventually like at end game, people were like stuck in these chairs. They had to float around, and all they did was pump food and stuff into their bodies the whole time. They never
Somebody
got
wants
up.
that too. I agree. Somebody wants that.
They were totally atrophied. And, I think that if we're not careful, we'll spend too much time sitting in these computer chairs. You got people who like gamers who literally don't get up to use the bathroom. So instead, they go to the bathroom in different bottles and leave these bottles sitting around their seat as they're playing. They won't even get up.
Is that true? Is that true?
Yes.
Statement. That's
Yes,
true.
that's how addictive it is.
Yeah. I don't lie. I'm not going to be up here lying to y'all just to prove a point. This stuff is amazing. It's crazy, actually.
And you know what?
Oh my gosh, that's the first time I ever heard of that. They don't go to the restroom.
No, not if they don't have to.
And not saying the dollar is the bottom line here, but Activision was just bought out by Microsoft today for $68.7 billion.
Wow.
So if you got to pee in a few bottles to improve your life, get the bills paid, get things done, and go back to the real world when you have the bag. All right, what are we talking about here?
But Activision was around when I was little, and it was around when I was little. So here we go. They sold for billions of dollars, right? And again, which Black person is profiting off of that? I know I bought plenty of Activision games back in the day, right? I know I deal with plenty of Microsoft products right now. I ain't seen now part of that.
There's no
King,
barrier.
I do want to tap into that. Whereas Black people are making some low level money comparatively with the people who are creating the metaverse, with the people who are creating crypto, with the people who are creating Instagram and Facebook. The people who are making money off of those platforms are making very little money compared to the people who've created those platforms. So why can't, and I'm speaking specifically about Black people, why can't Black people get in on the creations of some of these so that we are the owner of an NFL team and not just the player?
Because we're too cool. By and large, our culture is way too cool to be creators. Technology is boring, it's nerdy. All this other stuff we're talking about is boring and nerdy. It's not a cool thing. We keep looking to athletes and entertainers for advice all the time. For whatever reason, that's what our culture does. We should not look at any entertainer, athlete, whatever, without any type of professional background for any type of advice outside of their expertise. Yet our culture continuously does so. So right now, crypto specific, metaverse specific, NFTs and all this stuff, there is literally zero barrier to entry, which is why when I see these groups pop up in crypto, Black woman, all this, I'm like, there's no barrier to entry right now. Literally anyone, a 5-year-old Black, you can do it right now. They're just not for whatever reason. That has nothing to do with the industry. It has nothing to do with the platforms or the creators. It has to do with the culture and the community not doing it for whatever reason.
Doesn't it require capital, King Bless?
No, a lot of it actually doesn't require that much capital. You can make a cryptocurrency 15 minutes online right now for free.
You said you can make a cryptocurrency. I'm gonna get with you, brother. I'm gonna check out your channel because I need
for sure. And that's my point. It doesn't require that much overhead. It doesn't require capital. It doesn't require all these things. It requires somebody who's just interested in it. And right now there's a lot of programs, grants, blah, 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 blah. And we're encouraging and helping this as well, to where anyone can enter the space. Is literally just not the cool thing to do. It's literally not the cool thing to do.
So I want to do a debate real quick, just to, I'll give each of you about 30 seconds or a little bit over to state your case, whether technology is dumbing us down. Yes or no, Miles? And why?
Technology it's dumbing us down. The creators of all of these social media platforms even said they made it addictive on purpose so that people would constantly spend their time on the platforms. And then they put in advertising. And once they put in advertising, people are spending money. It's all about money. Think about the challenges that are out there, the social media challenges, people doing the blackout challenge, people doing the planking challenge and hurting themselves, people taking selfies on mountains and dying just to get a perfect picture. Like, it's making us dumber, so much dumber.
Tony.
So I guess I just want to say that, if you think about what we're capable of compared to someone who lived 200 years ago, imagine, I don't know, someone in a 19th century scientist would have a hard time imagining the stuff that for us is easy. And that's not because our brains are better. It's because of the technology and the research that's gone in to making it so that the world we live in enables us to do a lot more.
Dr. Menzie?
The answer would be yes, technology is assisting in our dumbing down, in so many different ways. Our memory, being able to spell and communicate in writing, even the fact that people are like allowing themselves to be videotaped and doing lewd acts and having that dispersed. I mean, that's dumb. People are doing things with these pocket computers. You said every home having a computer, every pocket has a computer now. And so when you look at it, yes, we are slowly but surely drifting away. But I want to be very clear. I don't think technology is a bad thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. But we just have to understand what the trade-offs are and intentionally and conscientiously hold on to those things that are valuable to us as human beings as we do shift into a new technology.
King Bless will get your take on it when we return on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on FOXSOUL. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. Let's get down to the business of being Black today. Technology. Is it dumbing us down? Please welcome the co-host of the Gentlemen of Crypto podcast, King Bless, radio personality, and the host of Miles to Mogul, Miles Blockson, author and research professor of philosophy and psychology, Professor Anthony Chimero, and consultant and life coach, Dr. Jeff Menzie is with us today. Dr. Menzie, have you seen in your practice, any results of how technology has affected us?
Absolutely have. I've seen where students have a higher rate of distractibility, meaning that they're more easily taken off task by background noises, things that they might find more interesting, the inability to focus and pay attention. There have been studies that have demonstrated that when a person hears their phone ring and they're unable to reach it or answer it, their blood pressure literally rises, right? If they hear that ding of a voicemail or an email coming through or social media notification, they will literally shift their brain, their cognitive functioning in that moment, whatever they were focusing on, they now become distracted, wondering what that was about. And so it absolutely has impaired their ability to complete tasks, to perform well on tasks, and even to approach what they might perceive to be an unattractive task in the first place, all of which is detrimental to performance in life.
I have to say, back in the day when the home phone rang, my blood pressure would rise.
You thought it was the people calling.
It was something about the excitement of hearing it go. King Bless, please. I have to know your take. Technology, is it dumbing us down?
No, technology isn't dumbing us down. Again, it's enhancing us. If you are already a dumb clout chaser before technology, you probably just be enhanced by it as well. And just speaking of like dumbing us down, I hate to even insult dumb people using technology, specifically social media, because for the most part, it's usually two groups or two types of people looking. People who are trying to find some type of financial assistance. So they're using social media for finances, whether it's views to get them more money, or they think it'll get them more money or whatever, or they're looking for love. A lot of people don't got hugs. They don't got friends. They don't have people to talk to, which is why they're on social media.
They're looking for likes.
Looking for likes and love, whatever it is. They need a hug. So I feel like, again, it's not making us dumb. It's just enhancing who you already are.
So can they get a virtual hug?
A meta hug.
They can get a thumbs up from Facebook. Like,
I don't know that that's the same as a virtual hug.
hey, for some people, you'd be surprised what they do for it.
King Bless, please tell us about your podcast.
For sure. So our podcast is Monday through Friday at 10-ish Eastern time. But 30 minutes, we just like to talk about everything that's going on in the news, top stories and headlines, and cryptocurrency specific. That way, for people who are in the market or are interested in the market, they have a quick summation of what to expect and what's going on.
Excellent. Dr. Menzie, what can you tell us about your book, Practical Psychology 101, a psychological manual for Black Lives Matter and all other movements and mind on the matter?
Yes. So the book, Practical Psychology, it deals with the...
That's a long title. Did that fit on the book?
Yeah, because it's a subtitle. I wanted people to be able to contextualize what type of practical psychology. So it's actually for people that are interested in social justice movements. And, I was watching the protests taking place in North Carolina, and I was like, they were being led on a predetermined path. And I was talking back to the TV. I figured that they were totally unaware of how orchestrated the movement actually is. And so I figured if people can learn more about psychology, they'll be better off in everything that they do in life. And as far as Mind on the Matter, we're a publishing company. Started with my first book actually called Dumbing Down, and so I wrote about dumbing down 10 years ago. But anyway, it's a publishing company. It's also a consultation firm. We do staff development, professional development, direct life coaching, and all other types of stuff.
And have you published? Has the company published other books, Dr. Menzie?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we have a total of 10 books, and we've got 3 coming down the pipe right now.
Excellent. Professor Shamiro, please tell us about your book. Speaking of books, Radical Embodied Cognitive Science. And I can't even pronounce the word. Is it a real word? Phenomenology?
Sure, it's a word. It's a German word. I guess it was a German word initially. But so what I actually study is how people do smart things by moving their bodies. Right. So when I talk about radical embodied cognitive science, I say, in order to understand how smart we are, we should look at what's in the environment around us and how we engage with it, which is exactly why I was disagreeing with Dr. Menzie all show.
Can you give me a specific example of what you're saying?
Sure. If you just want to, here's what I say, if you want to understand vision, say how you see the world, you can't just look at your brain areas that are involved in vision or just your eyes. You have to understand that have eyes that move in a moving body in a really rich environment. And so you can't focus first on just the brain.
Okay. I guess I was looking for more of a specific example.
Sure. Sorry.
Just so that I can understand.
Yeah, sure. And this is a phrase from a guy named Andy Clark. He talked about how humans in general are really good at Frisbee and bad at logic, right? So we do lots of things that are really smart by moving our bodies. And another way to say this.
Okay. Like, for example, if a ball is about to hit us, we duck.
Well, not just that. I mean, what I'm trying to do is equate the kind of genius of Albert Einstein with that of Michael Jordan, right? That they're equally geniuses. And Jordan just does it more by moving his body around, or did.
Okay. Or Misty Copeland is genius by moving her body around. Okay. Gotcha. Versus Bill Gates.
Exactly.
Who is a different kind of genius. Okay. We get it. We totally get it. Miles, please talk about that podcast, Miles to Mogul.
Yes, Miles to Mogul is a podcast about the journeys and lifestyles of up-and-coming moguls that are pursuing their passion and making money from it. So, it could be anybody from an entertainer to a business guy to anybody like on the podcast that is actually pursuing their passion and, looking to be an upcoming mogul.
How do you determine whether someone will be a mogul? That's interesting. Because
they're... No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, go ahead. How do you determine that? I'm going to have her on the show because she's going to be about am I capable of being on your show?
Well, Tammi, you are a mogul. You know that. But yes, the way that I figure it out is like their lifestyle habits. If they're passionate about what they're doing and they didn't take the traditional route to get there, I think that is information that a lot of people don't have. Like, what books are you reading? Do you meditate every day? Things of that nature.
Ah, okay. They say that meditation is what most moguls do. So I'm wondering, if you don't meditate, is that a sign that you will never be a mogul?
I don't think so. I think that is something you probably will pick up along the way, though, for sure.
Ah, okay. So let's take it back to technology. I want to wrap this up. I want to know in three words, If someone is scared of technology, or better yet, I'll make it simple. What and how has technology affected us in 3 words? And how do we not let it affect us? What can we do to incorporate technology in our lives and not allow it to affect us in a dangerous way? In 3 words, how can we do that? Yeah, I know that's going to take some.
I would say it's your sidekick. Like, the biggest thing about technology is it's your sidekick. You shouldn't fully 110% lean on, like, even with Zoom, how often do Zoom meetings go out and all that stuff? It's just your sidekick. You should use it to enhance. That's all.
Okay. It's my side piece.
That's what helps.
Tony, 3 words. King says it's your sidekick. How can we use it so that it doesn't affect us in a negative way?
Well, don't be distracted, right? That is, use it for things that you want to use it for, that it can do better than you can do by yourself.
I love that.
Don't use it constantly all day.
Yeah. Dr. Menzie?
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's not the world. It's not the end of all be all. Don't worry about, I'm going to tell my husband the reason, I'm going to say, hey, your blood pressure, you can lower your blood pressure if that phone don't ring. I did not know that. Anyway, Miles.
Limit your time. That's it.
Well, our time has been limited right now. Thank you so much for being on Business of Being Black. Stick around, because Turnout with T.S. Madison is next for the people. Until next time, it's a blessing to be in your box on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul. Bye, y'all.